A poor girl is humiliated when she tries to grab a sandwich at a bakery, but she bursts into tears and says, "It's for my little brother. He hasn't eaten since yesterday." And what a young billionaire does leaves everyone speechless. Snow was falling slowly outside Davidson's bakery, covering the ground with a white carpet that reflected the morning light. Ethan Walker rubbed his hands together to ward off the cold as he waited for his coffee. At 29, he had a presence that didn't draw much attention: well-trimmed brown hair, quality clothing without any ostentation, and a discreet watch whose value few would recognize. The barista placed the steaming cup on the counter. "Your coffee, sir." As always, Ethan thanked him with a nod. He was known there not as the heir to the Walker construction empire, but simply as the customer who came every morning, sat in the same corner, and ordered the same coffee with a slice of cinnamon bread. That was what he valued most: anonymity. After his father passed away and Ethan took over the business, his photo had appeared in business magazines and financial websites. But the media frenzy didn't last long. Ethan didn't give interviews, didn't attend high society parties, and avoided the spotlight that usually followed a billionaire fortune. "The best place to think is somewhere no one's looking at you," his father used to say. Ethan took that lesson to heart. The bakery was his morning refuge: exposed brick walls, dark wooden tables, and the unmistakable smell of fresh bread. There, among ordinary people, Ethan felt part of something real. He opened his laptop and began reviewing the numbers for the new housing project his company would launch next month. It was an affordable housing development using sustainable materials, a project he was personally passionate about. The doorbell rang, and a gust of cold wind swept through the place. Ethan glanced up instinctively and saw a girl come in. He wouldn't have paid her much attention, except for the fact that she was alone and looked out of place. She wore a coat far too thin for winter, a faded beanie, and worn-out boots. Her eyes scanned the counter where sandwiches were on display. The girl didn't approach the register. She just stood there, staring at the food with a kind of intensity you wouldn't expect from a child. Her fingers, bare of gloves, were red from the cold. "Sandra," the clerk asked in a harsh voice, "You gonna buy something, kid?" The girl flinched, as if she'd been caught doing something wrong. I was just looking. This isn't an art gallery. It's a bakery. If you're not buying, maybe you should leave." Ethan watched the scene discreetly over the top of his laptop. The girl looked like she was making a difficult decision. She reached into her pocket and pulled out some coins, counting them in her palm. "How much is that sandwich?" She pointed to a ham and cheese one. $6.50, Sandra replied, skepticism evident in her voice. The girl looked at the coins in her hand. It clearly wasn't enough. Her eyes returned to the sandwich, and something in that gaze, a mix of longing and desperation, made Ethan close his laptop. When Sandra turned away to help another customer, the girl reached toward the display case in a quick motion. Her fingers almost touched one of the sandwiches when Sandra whirled around and clapped her hands loudly. "Don't even think about it. I'll call security." The girl withdrew, her face burning with shame. "Please," she whispered, voice trembling. "It's for my little brother. He hasn't eaten since yesterday." Her words lingered in the bakery's air. Some customers glanced over briefly, then returned to their own affairs. Sandra hesitated, torn between compassion and the rules she had to follow. Ethan stood up. It wasn't a conscious decision, it was automatic. In a few strides, he was at the girl's side. "2 ham and cheese sandwiches, 2 hot chocolates and 2 chocolate muffins, please," he said to the clerk. Then he turned to the girl. "Does that sound good?" She looked at him warily but nodded slightly. Her eyes, Ethan noticed now, were an unusual shade of green, made even more striking against her pale skin. "Does your brother like chocolate?" Ethan asked, as Sandra began preparing the order. "He likes anything," the girl replied, still cautious, "whenever we have something to eat." The simplicity of her answer hit Ethan like a punch. He was a man who never had to check menu prices, who owned homes in 3 different countries, and here was a child for whom a simple sandwich was a luxury. When Sandra handed over the paper bag, Ethan paid and offered it to the girl. For a moment, she didn't take it, as if suspecting some kind of trick. "It's just food," he said kindly. "For you and your brother." At last, she accepted the bag, holding it as if it were precious. "Thank you," she said, her voice almost inaudible. "What's your name?" Ethan asked. She hesitated, as if deciding whether to answer. "Lily," she finally said. "I'm Ethan. I hope your brother likes the food, Lily." She nodded, and before he could say anything else, she turned and hurried out the door, disappearing into the snow that was now falling more heavily. Ethan returned to his table, but he could no longer concentrate on work. The image of the girl, Lily, stayed in his mind. It wasn't just the obvious poverty, it was something in her expression. Eyes far too old for a child, eyes that had seen more hardship than they should. He closed his laptop, left some money on the table, and walked out. The sky was filled with grey clouds, and the temperature kept dropping. As he walked to his car, he thought about Lily trudging through that cold, clutching a bag of food for a hungry little brother. "It's for my little brother. He hasn't eaten since yesterday." The words replayed in his mind. Ethan unlocked his car, an elegant but understated sedan, and sat behind the wheel. He started the engine but didn't drive off. Through the windshield, the falling snow turned the city into a white, silent world. Somewhere in that landscape, Lily was taking food home. But what kind of home was it? The question hung in his mind. Ethan checked his watch. He had a meeting in an hour with investors, people expecting him to multiply their millions. And yet, he couldn't stop thinking about the girl and her haunted expression, a gaze carrying a burden no child should bear. Ethan made a decision. The meeting could wait. He turned the key, shifted gears, and left the parking lot. He didn't know exactly where he was going, but he knew what he was looking for: a girl in a faded beanie carrying a bag from Davidson's bakery. Ethan slowed the car as he scanned the sidewalks for the girl among the passers-by, hurrying to escape the cold. The snow kept falling, forming small drifts along curbs and corners. That's when he spotted the faded beanie. Lily walked quickly, clutching the bakery bag to her chest like a treasure. She seemed to know exactly where she was headed, turning corners and crossing streets with the confidence of someone familiar with the route. Ethan kept his distance. The last thing he wanted to do was scare her. He turned off the radio and focused on not losing her as she moved away from the commercial center into increasingly deserted streets. The surrounding buildings began to change. Well-kept shops and cozy cafes gave way to establishments with barred windows, broken signs, and walls covered in graffiti. Lily pressed on, seemingly immune to the contrast. She turned into a narrow street, more like an alley, where Ethan's car couldn't pass. He parked quickly, locked his vehicle, and continued on foot, keeping a safe distance. The biting wind stung his face, and he pulled his scarf higher. Lily was now walking through an area that looked forgotten by the city. Old buildings with shattered windows, empty lots fenced off with battered boards, and occasional clusters of people huddled around barrels of burning wood for warmth. A few curious looks turned toward Ethan. With his good coat and polished shoes, he clearly didn't belong there. But no one approached him. He kept following Lily, who was approaching a faded red brick building. The structure looked like it had once been beautiful. The remaining architectural details suggested it was built in another era, when the area might have been prosperous. Now, broken windows were patched with plastic or cardboard, and the main entrance was boarded up. Lily didn't go to the front of the building. Instead, she went around it, slipping through an opening in the fence at the back. Ethan waited a few seconds, then followed the same route. The backyard was full of debris, pieces of broken furniture and accumulated trash. A service door hanging by a single hinge was the entrance Lily used. Ethan hesitated. He was invading the privacy of a child he barely knew, but concern won out. He needed to make sure she was okay, that there was some adult caring for her and her brother. Taking a deep breath, he went inside. The smell struck him first: dampness, mold, and something else, an odor of abandonment and decay. His eyes took a few seconds to adjust to the dim light. He was in a narrow hallway, probably an old service corridor. There was no electricity, just the faint daylight coming through broken windows. He heard light footsteps climbing stairs and followed them, trying not to make a sound. The metal steps of the service stairwell creaked under his weight. One flight, then another. On the third floor, he saw a door slightly ajar and heard Lily's voice. "Noah, I brought food. Look what I got." Ethan crept closer. Through the gap, he saw what must have once been an apartment. Now it was just an open space with the remnants of dividing walls. The wallpaper, partially ripped, exposed water stains. The floor was covered in dust and bits of plaster from the crumbling ceiling. In a corner, away from the broken window that let in wind and snow, was an old, torn mattress placed on pieces of cardboard. A small boy lay there, wrapped in thin blankets. His face lit up at the sight of his sister. "Lily?" His childish voice echoed in the empty space. Noah tried to sit up, but he seemed weak. Lily rushed to him, kneeling down and placing the bakery bag on the floor. "Look what I brought. Sandwiches and hot chocolate, though it might be a bit cold now." The little boy grabbed the sandwich Lily unwrapped, taking a bite too big for his small mouth. Lily smiled, genuinely happy to see her brother eating. "Slow down, Noah. There's more. You don't have to swallow it all at once." Ethan stood still, watching. The children were alone. There was no sign of parents or any adult. The apartment had no furniture besides the torn mattress, some cardboard boxes serving as tables and shelves, and a bucket that seemed to function as a bathroom. One of the boxes contained a few broken toys and children's books with torn covers. Another held folded clothes, worn out and obviously too small. Noah ate ravenously, while Lily blew on the still faintly steaming hot chocolate. She took a small sip before handing it to her brother. "Is it good?" The boy nodded, mouth full. "Best food in the whole world." Lily laughed and tucked the blanket around his shoulders. "Today we eat like kings." That's when Ethan noticed other disturbing details. A makeshift little stove made from cans, probably used to heat water when they could get some. Bits of food carefully saved in reused containers, plastic bottles of water lined up near the mattress. And most heartbreaking, drawings made by Noah taped to the peeling walls, a colorful house, a smiling sun, stick-figure family members holding hands, a version of reality that existed only on paper and in a child's imagination. Ethan felt a lump in his throat. How is it possible these kids lived like this, just a few miles from downtown, where people like him spent on a single dinner what could feed them for weeks? The contrast between his life and theirs was overwhelming. While he debated million-dollar projects in conference rooms overlooking the river, these children were scavenging and sleeping on a ripped mattress. "Who gave you this?" Noah's voice brought Ethan back to the moment. "Did you get it again?" Lily shook her head. "No, Noah. A man bought it for us. At the bakery." "Why?" the boy asked, curious, chocolate clinging to the corner of his mouth. "I don't know. I guess he was just being kind." "What was his name?" "Ethan." Hearing his name in the girl's voice, Ethan shifted slightly, and his foot caused a loose floorboard to creak. The sound echoed in the empty hallway. Lily jumped up, alarmed. "Who's there?" Ethan knew he couldn't hide anymore. He gently pushed the door open and stepped in. "It's me, Lily. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to scare you." The girl instinctively positioned herself in front of her brother. Her eyes, which had shown gratitude in the bakery, were now filled with fear and distrust. "What are you doing here? How did you find us?" Ethan raised his hands, a gesture of peace. "I was worried. I wanted to make sure you and your brother were all right. You followed us." It wasn't a question. It was an accusation. "Yes," Ethan admitted. "And now I'm even more worried. Where are your parents, Lily?" The girl didn't answer. Noah looked between them, confused, still clutching the sandwich in both hands. "Is that the food man, Lily?" the little one asked. His sister nodded, not taking her eyes off Ethan. "Are you from social services? Are you going to take us away?" The question hit Ethan like a blow. Clearly, it wasn't the first time Lily had faced that threat. "No," Ethan said sincerely. "I'm not from social services. I just want to help." "Nobody helps for free," Lily retorted, sounding far too wise for her age. "What do you want?" Ethan looked at the two children, one suspicious and protective and the other small and vulnerable. and realized his life had just changed forever. "I want you both to be safe," he finally said, "and from what I see, you're not." The silence after Ethan's words was broken only by the whistling wind blowing through the broken window. Lily remained in front of her brother, like a small human shield. "You need help," Ethan continued, keeping his distance so as not to frighten them. "This place isn't safe, especially in this cold." "We've been through worse winters," Lily said, lifting her chin in fragile pride. Noah peeked out from behind his sister, curious eyes flicking between her and the well-dressed stranger. He coughed, a harsh sound that seemed too big for his little body. "Your brother's sick," Ethan observed, noting the flush on the boy's cheeks that contrasted with the pallor of the rest of his face. "He'll get better," Lily insisted, though her voice betrayed her concern. "He always does." Ethan looked around. The cold drafts slipping through the broken windows, the damp walls, the hard floor. It was no place for anyone, let alone children. "I'll respect your decision, Lily," he said carefully, "but I want to help. I can bring food, warmer blankets, medicine for your brother." "I can do that tomorrow morning." Lily hesitated, her green eyes studying Ethan as though trying to read his true intentions. "Why would you do that?" she asked finally. It was a fair question, and Ethan didn't have a polished answer. Why did he care so much about two children he didn't know? "Because it's the right thing to do," he said simply. "And because I can." Noah tugged at his sister's sleeve. "Let him help, Lily," he whispered, loud enough for Ethan to hear. "I'm cold." The girl looked at her brother, then at Ethan. He could see the internal battle she waged, the instinct to protect Noah against the need to accept help. "All right," she said at last. "You can bring that stuff, but don't tell anyone about us." Ethan nodded. "I'll come back tomorrow morning, I promise." As he left the abandoned building, the snow was falling even harder. Ethan walked to his car, weighed down by what he had just witnessed. That night, he barely slept. The image of the children alone in that frigid place replaying in his mind. The next morning, before the sun was fully up, Ethan was out shopping for supplies. He filled a cart with non-perishable foods: bread, fruit, canned goods, cookies, shelf-stable milk. He stopped at a pharmacy for fever medicine, cough syrup, children's vitamins. Then he went to a department store for thermal blankets, pillows, winter clothes in various sizes, thick socks, gloves, and new hats. The trunk of his car barely closed, packed with so many bags. As he drove to the abandoned building, he wondered what he would say to Lily, how to earn the trust of a child who had clearly learned not to trust adults. When he arrived, the sky was still grey, threatening more snow. Ethan carried the bags through the same path as the day before, climbing the creaking stairs to the third floor. The door was ajar, as before. Ethan knocked softly. "Lily, Noah, it's me, Ethan." There was no answer. He gently pushed the door open and entered. The place looked the same, except for one detail that made his heart race. Noah was curled up on the mattress, visibly shivering, while Lily pressed a damp cloth to his forehead. "What happened?" Ethan asked, dropping the bags and stepping closer. Lily looked up, her eyes red from lack of sleep. "He got worse overnight. He's burning up." Ethan knelt beside the mattress. Noah's eyes were closed, his breathing fast and shallow. His face was flushed, sweating even in the cold. "Can I?" Ethan asked, gesturing to touch the boy's forehead. Lily nodded. Ethan placed his hand on Noah's forehead, feeling the heat radiating off him. High fever, no doubt. "I brought medicine," he said, standing to grab one of the bags. "But I think he needs a doctor, Lily." The girl shook her head. "We can't go to the hospital. They'll ask questions. They'll separate us." "He's really sick," Ethan insisted, pulling out fever reducer from the bag. "This might help, but I don't know if it's enough." As he spoke, he opened the box, read the instructions, and measured out the correct dose. Lily took the medicine from his hands and carefully helped her brother swallow it. Noah opened his eyes briefly. "Lily, I'm cold." "I know, Noah. It'll pass." Ethan took out one of the thermal blankets he had purchased. It was soft and much warmer than the thin covers on the boy. "Let's switch out the old blankets," he suggested. Together, he and Lily replaced the tattered covers with the new one. Noah looked so small and fragile under the dark blue blanket. I brought food as well, Ethan said, showing the other bags, and warm clothes for both of you. Lily eyed the supplies with a mix of gratitude and distrust. Why are you doing all this? Ethan had no elaborate response. Because you need it. They spent the next hour organizing the supplies. Ethan showed Lily how to use the thermometer he'd brought, and they took Noah's temperature, 103.6 degrees, 39.86. Dangerously high. As the hours passed, it became clear the medicine wasn't helping enough. Noah alternated between shivering and sweating profusely. He started coughing more frequently, a harsh, deep sound that worried Ethan even more. Lily, he finally said, your brother needs a doctor, right now. The girl looked at Noah, who was now fitfully sleeping. Silent tears slid down her cheeks. They'll take us away, she whispered. They'll separate us. Ethan knelt to meet her gaze. Look at me, Lily. I promise I won't let that happen. I'll make sure you two stay together and stay safe, but right now Noah needs the hospital. She stared at him, weighing his sincerity. After a moment that felt like an eternity, she slowly nodded. Okay. It was as if a huge weight had lifted from Ethan's shoulders. Let's pack some of your things, okay? Quickly, they gathered clean clothes and a few personal items into one of the new bags Ethan had brought. Lily carefully placed a patched-up teddy bear next to Noah. It's Mr. Cuddles, she explained. He can't sleep without it. Ethan felt a pang in his chest seeing the worn toy that was clearly the boy's treasure. Ready? He asked, gently wrapping Noah in the thermal blanket. Lily glanced around the place that had been her home for so long. Can we come back later? The question was charged with meaning. It was the only home they'd known, bad as it was. We'll see what's best for you both, Ethan said carefully. But I promise you'll always have somewhere to stay. He picked Noah up, surprised at how light the boy was. Lily grabbed the bag and, with one final look at the apartment, followed Ethan down the stairs. The drive to the hospital was silent. In the back seat, Lily held her brother's hand while Ethan drove as fast as he safely could. Through the rearview mirror, he saw the girl's worried face. She looked as if she had aged years in mere hours. At the ER, things happened quickly. Ethan rushed in carrying Noah, Lily clinging by his side. The medical team acted immediately upon seeing the boy's condition. Likely pneumonia, a doctor said after a quick assessment. We'll need tests and to start treatment. While the doctors tended to Noah, a nurse approached with a form. Are you the father? She asked. Ethan hesitated. Next to him, Lily tensed. I'm responsible for them right now, he answered carefully. I can explain the situation to someone in administration while you treat Noah. The next moments were chaotic. Noah was taken for tests. Lily insisted on staying by his side, and Ethan found himself giving a simplified version of the truth to a hospital social worker. I found the children in precarious conditions, he said. I don't know where their parents are. I'm willing to assume temporary responsibility for them until this is sorted out. Hours later, seated in an uncomfortable chair beside Noah's hospital bed, now hooked to an IV and somewhat stable, Ethan received the results of the tests. The doctor, a middle-aged man with a kind expression, spoke softly. Besides pneumonia, the boy shows clear signs of chronic malnutrition and vitamin deficiencies. There are also indications of past injuries that weren't properly treated. He paused, eyeing Lily, who had finally fallen asleep in a chair nearby. She needs an examination, too. Ethan nodded, a mixture of anger and sadness welling up inside him. I'll do whatever it takes to help them. The doctor studied him for a moment. The social worker will want to speak with you further. These situations are complicated. I understand, Ethan said, but I'm not abandoning them. After the doctor left, Ethan looked at the two sleeping children. In less than 2 days, they had become the most important thing in his life, a life he had believed to be complete. Now, he knew he would never be the same. Noah stayed in the hospital for 3 days. The pneumonia was severe, requiring IV antibiotics and constant care. During that time, Ethan hardly left the hospital, working remotely when possible and cancelling meetings he couldn't postpone. Lily refused to leave her brother, sleeping in the chair next to his bed and only leaving the room when nurses insisted she needed to eat. On the third day, the doctor came in with a subtle smile. Good news. The fever's gone, and tests show the infection is under control. I think Noah can be discharged tomorrow. Are we going home? Noah asked, his voice still weak, but with a spark of hope in his eyes. Ethan and Lily exchanged a look. The building wasn't an option. Actually, Ethan leaned closer to the bed. I was thinking maybe you two would like to stay at my apartment for a while, just until you're completely better. Noah looked at his sister, waiting for her to decide. Lily bit her lip, worried. And after that? She asked. Then we'll figure it out together. After more conversations with the hospital's social worker, who took detailed notes, Ethan received temporary permission to take the children home. There would be follow-up visits and bureaucratic hurdles, but for now they would remain in his care. On the morning of the fourth day, Noah was discharged. He left in a wheelchair, as per hospital protocol, clutching his patched-up teddy bear in one hand and Lily's hand in the other. Ethan had already arranged new clothes for both of them, and the front seat of his car was loaded with prescribed medications and home care instructions. Where do you live? Noah asked as Ethan buckled him into the seatbelt. Not too far from here, Ethan replied. It's an apartment downtown. Is there a TV? The boy asked, eyes wide. Ethan smiled. Yes, there's a TV. Wow! Noah turned to his sister. You hear that, Lily? We can watch cartoons. Lily just nodded, still cautious. Since leaving the hospital, she seemed to have raised her guard again, as though the reality of moving into a near stranger's home was finally hitting her. Ethan's car pulled into the underground garage of a modern building made of glass and concrete. When the elevator carried them to the top floor, Noah gasped upon realizing there was only one door. You live here alone. In this whole building, not the entire building. Ethan laughed as he unlocked the door. Just this floor. The door opened to a spacious living area. Dark wood floors contrasted with light-colored furniture and white walls. A large L-shaped sofa faced a stone fireplace, and above it, a flat-screen TV. A dining table for 8 sat near the floor-to-ceiling windows, which offered a panoramic view of the city and the river slicing through it. Whoa! Noah exclaimed, eyes wide. It's like a castle! Ethan smiled, watching their reactions. Noah dashed forward, exploring every corner with childlike curiosity. Lily hovered near the door, as if evaluating escape routes. Come on, let me show you where you'll be staying. He led them down a hallway, past a spacious modern kitchen, to a door at the end. He opened it, revealing a large bedroom with 2 twin beds, each dressed in light blue sheets and fluffy white duvets. Between the beds stood a small table with a lamp. Matching blue curtains were open, letting the afternoon sun fill the room. This is your room, Ethan said. The bathroom is that door over there. Noah ran and jumped onto one of the beds. It's so soft. Lily approached more cautiously, touching the duvet as if she couldn't believe how it felt. I've never seen a bed like this, she muttered. I also got some things for you, Ethan said, pointing to the closet. Clothes and a few other items I thought you might like. Opening the closet, Lily saw neatly arranged new clothes with tags still attached, sorted by size. On the lower shelf, there were colorful boxes containing toys, cars, building blocks, children's books, and a rag doll with yarn hair. This is for us, Lily asked, voice barely a whisper. All for you, Ethan confirmed. Noah was already poking around in the boxes, marveling at each discovery. Look, Lily, real cars, and check this out. He held up an illustrated book about forest animals. Why don't you rest for a bit, Ethan suggested. Then we can eat something. You must be hungry after the hospital trip. Leaving the children to explore their new room, Ethan went to the kitchen, where Rosa, the housekeeper who came 3 times a week, was already preparing lunch. Mr. Walker, have the children settled in? Yes, Rosa. Thank you for coming in today to help. Rosa was a middle-aged woman with graying hair and a warm smile. When Ethan called her the previous day explaining the situation, she offered her help without hesitation. I made some chicken and vegetable soup, nice and light for the boy as you asked, and I also made grilled cheese sandwiches. Kids usually like those. Perfect, Rosa, thank you. An hour later, Ethan called the kids to the kitchen. Noah appeared hand in hand with Lily, who still looked uneasy. This is Rosa, Ethan introduced. She helps take care of the house. Rosa, this is Lily and Noah. Lovely to meet you, Rosa said warmly. I prepared a special lunch for you. They sat at the breakfast nook, a cozier area than the formal dining space. Noah stared at each item on the table with fascination. The white plates, the shiny silverware, the cloth napkins, the orange juice in glass cups. Can I eat all of this? He asked, looking at the bowl of soup and sandwich on his plate. Of course, Ethan replied, and there's more if you want it. The boy picked up the spoon and began slurping the soup enthusiastically. Lily ate more slowly, tasting each thing with caution as if expecting a trap. Rosa watched them with a maternal smile. Mr. Walker, I'll organize the rest of the groceries and prepare some more meals for you. I'll leave everything in the fridge with instructions to warm it up. Thank you, Rosa. After lunch, Noah was clearly tired. The doctor had warned he'd need plenty of rest to fully recover. Ethan took him to the bedroom, where the boy fell asleep almost immediately, cuddling Mr. Cuddles. In the living room, Lily stood by the window, looking out at the city below. Ethan approached quietly. Nice view, isn't it? She nodded without turning around. I've never been this high up, she commented, her reflection in the glass showing subdued wonder. Lily, Ethan began gently, I know all this is strange and new for you. I know you're worried. I want you to know that you and Noah can stay here as long as you need. You're safe. She finally turned to face him. For how long? Until you get tired of us. Until you decide we're too much work. The question hit Ethan hard. Clearly, Lily had been abandoned before. I'm not going to get tired of you, and you're not work. I'm glad you're here. She studied him, looking for signs of deceit in his face. Why? Ethan thought for a moment before answering. Because this place never really felt like home until now. Something in his sincerity seemed to reach Lily. It wasn't complete trust, but maybe it was a start. Noah needs plenty of rest, she said, changing the subject, and he has to take his medicine on time. We'll manage that together, Ethan promised. You're a great big sister, you know that. A faint blush colored Lily's cheeks. The following days settled into a calm routine. Noah spent much of his time sleeping and watching cartoons on TV, soaking in every color and sound as if it were magic. Ethan worked from his home office, door open so the children could come in whenever they wanted. Lily began drawing, using the colored pencils and paper Ethan had bought. Her drawings often depicted two small figures, her and Noah, in various settings. Mealtimes became special moments. Ethan insisted on sitting with them, even when he had work pending. Noah told long, rambling stories, and Lily would smile quietly at her brother's enthusiasm. Ethan noticed she smiled more when she thought no one was looking. One night after dinner, Noah asked if they could play a game. Ethan found an old board game he barely remembered owning. Do you know Monopoly? He asked. Noah shook his head, but Lily nodded. I saw some kids playing it at school once before. She didn't finish the sentence. They spread the board on the coffee table. Ethan explained the rules in a simplified way, and soon they were rolling dice and moving tokens. Noah giggled every time he bought a property, and even Lily allowed herself moments of genuine competition. Amid the laughter and the warmth of the fireplace, Ethan looked at the children and felt something shift within him. His apartment, once a space of solitary independence, now felt alive. That night, after tucking the children into bed, Ethan stayed in the living room with a cup of tea, reflecting on how his life had changed in just a few days. Before, it had been all about meetings and contracts. Now, it revolved around medicine schedules, cartoons, and board games. Strangely, he didn't miss his old routine at all. Rosa noticed the difference in him. You seem different, she remarked as she prepared breakfast the next morning. Different how? Lighter, like you found something you didn't know you were looking for. Ethan smiled, acknowledging her perceptive comment. By the 8th day, Noah was much better. Color had returned to his cheeks, and his energy increased daily. He explored the apartment with boundless curiosity, asking questions about everything. Why do you have so many books? Why is the sofa so big? How does this light turn on by itself when we walk in? Why do you live alone? Where's your mom? The last question caught Ethan off guard. My mom lives in another city, he answered gently. She visits sometimes. Our mom doesn't visit us, Noah said with a child's blunt honesty. Lily says she went away. Ethan glanced at Lily, who froze mid-drawing. Her eyes met his, full of silent warning. I'm sorry to hear that, Ethan said carefully. It's okay, Noah shrugged. I have Lily. And now I have you too. The simplicity of his statement warmed Ethan's heart, but also filled his mind with questions. What had really happened to their mother? Why were they alone in that building? How long had they lived like that? Later that day, when Noah was napping, Ethan found Lily sitting on the windowsill in their room, looking out at the city lights. He's getting better, Ethan commented, nodding toward Noah. Yeah, Lily agreed. The medicine helps. Lily, Ethan paused, choosing his words. At some point, we need to talk about your situation, about the future. She turned to look at him, her face tense. Are you going to send us away? No, he said quickly. It's not that. I want to help, really. But to do that, I need to understand more about what happened, about your mother, about how you ended up in that building. Lily turned back to the city lights. Not today, she said softly. Please. Ethan nodded, respecting her request. When you're ready. That night, after the children were asleep, Ethan lay awake, thinking. He needed to know more, not just to help them, but to protect them. If there was a mother out there, possibly looking for them, he needed to know. But something told him the story was likely more complicated and sadder than he wanted to imagine. For now, he would watch as the children adapted, building a routine that gave them some stability. Lily drew at the table. Noah played with his cars on the rug, and the three of them ate dinner together every evening. Each day, little barriers fell. Lily started asking questions about his work. Noah waited by the door when he knew Ethan was coming home. Laughter became more frequent, silences less tense. A peace Ethan had never experienced filled his apartment. And with it, the growing certainty that these children, who had come into his life by chance, might be exactly what he hadn't known he was looking for. But one doubt persisted, silent like a shadow. Where was Lily and Noah's mother? And what would happen when that answer emerged? 2 weeks passed since the children had arrived at Ethan's apartment. A routine had taken hold, Noah's color was back, and even Lily smiled more often. On cold evenings, the three gathered in the living room to watch movies, play board games, or simply chat. One night, Noah fell asleep on the couch, wrapped in a soft blanket, while the end credits of an animated movie rolled on the screen. His gentle breathing was the only sound in the apartment. He sleeps so peacefully now, Ethan said, turning down the TV volume. Lily nodded, adjusting the blanket over her brother. He used to have nightmares almost every night. Ethan observed the care with which she treated her brother. For a child, Lily bore far too many responsibilities. I can carry him to bed, Ethan offered. No, Lily replied. Let him stay here a bit longer. He likes sleeping close to us. Close to us. The words warmed Ethan's heart. It was the first time Lily had referred to them as a unit. They sat in silence for a few minutes, simply watching Noah sleep. There was a peace in the moment that Ethan didn't want to disrupt. Still, he knew some questions had to be confronted eventually. Lily, he began quietly, I think it's time we talk about some things. She lifted her eyes to him. The deep mistrust from before wasn't as strong, but caution remained. About what? About you two, about how you ended up in that building. About your mom. Lily turned her gaze away, focusing on some distant point beyond the window. For a moment, Ethan thought she wouldn't respond, that her walls would go back up. She left us, Lily finally said, voice barely above a whisper. One day, she went out and never came back. Ethan waited, giving Lily the time she needed. How long ago? Lily shrugged. I don't know exactly. Several months. It was cold like now. Have you always lived in that building? Yeah. Mom always said it was temporary. that we'd have a real home soon. She swallowed hard. But we never left. Ethan tried to choose his words carefully. And when she left that last time, what happened? Lily's fingers played with the hem of her shirt, a nervous habit Ethan had noticed before. It was morning. She said she was going to look for work and would be back that night. She left some food for us, crackers and juice. Told us not to open the door for anyone. Lily's voice shook. We waited the whole day, then another, and another. How old were you? Not sure, but Noah was really little. He could barely talk. Ethan did some mental math. If Noah was that young, Lily could have been no older than 8 or 9 when she took on the responsibility for her brother. What did you do when the food ran out? It was as though a dam burst. Lily began to talk, words flowing in a torrent that had been held back for too long. At first, we used the money she left in a drawer. It wasn't much, but enough for bread and milk for a few days. Then I started taking things from other empty apartments in the building. I found cans of food, packets of pasta. I learned how to light the little stove. She looked at her hands, as though she could still see the dirt from those days. When there was nothing left in the building, I had to go out looking for food. I'd wait near restaurant dumpsters. Sometimes people threw away stuff still good enough to eat. Ethan felt his throat tighten, imagining Lily, just a kid, forced to rummage through trash to feed her brother. Nights were worse, she went on, eyes on the fireplace flames as if she could see the past there. In winter, it was so cold our fingers went numb. Dowish and I would sleep huddled together, trying to keep warm. We wore every piece of clothing we had all at once. She paused, taking a shaky breath. I tried asking for help sometimes. I went to a church, but the priest was busy. I waited, but he never showed up. Once, I went into a store to ask if we could use the bathroom, and the man yelled at me, said it wasn't a public restroom. I tried explaining Noah was sick, but he pushed us out. Tears started rolling silently down Lily's cheeks. Some people pretended we didn't exist. They just walked by like we were invisible. Others looked disgusted, like we were something filthy. One lady gave me $5 but said not to spend it on drugs. I didn't even know what drugs were. Ethan moved closer and gently placed an arm around Lily's shoulders. To his surprise, she didn't pull away. That's when I discovered I could take things from stores, she confessed, voice so low Ethan barely heard. I didn't want to steal, but Noah was always hungry. You did what you had to do to survive, Lily, to take care of your brother. I was so scared, her voice cracked, scared they'd take Noah away, that we'd be separated. One time, a lady in a suit came to the building. Someone must have reported us. I hid with Noah in the basement until she left. Ethan could feel her small body trembling under his arm. How did you care for Noah when he got sick? I used damp cloths when he had a fever, like Mom did. One time, I found some medicine in a pharmacy. I gave it to him, but I didn't know if it was the right kind. She looked over at her sleeping brother. I was so afraid I'd lose him. You're amazing, Lily. You took care of your brother when many adults would have given up. She shook her head. I just did what I had to do. He's my little brother. Ethan felt both heartbreak and admiration for this child. What about school? He asked gently. We stopped going after Mom disappeared. I knew they'd ask questions if we showed up alone. The pieces of the puzzle were fitting together. The children had simply vanished from the system. No school, no medical records, no responsible adult. They were invisible to the official world. Lily, did you ever try to find your mum? Call any family members? She shook her head. I don't know anyone's number. And Mom's phone died after a few days, and we didn't know how to charge it. What about your dad? Do you have a dad? Mom said our dad left before Noah was born. I never knew him. Ethan inhaled slowly, absorbing every word. No grandparents, aunts, uncles. Mom mentioned a grandmother sometimes, but she said she lived far away. She never visited. Silence settled again. Noah stirred in his sleep, mumbling something. Lily automatically adjusted the blanket around him, a gesture she must have repeated countless times in that abandoned building. Thank you for telling me all of this, Lily, Ethan finally said. I know it wasn't easy. She nodded, wiping her tears with the back of her hand. Do you think she'll come back someday? The question carried a fragile hope that broke Ethan's heart. I don't know, Lily, but I promise I'll try to find out what happened to her. You and Noah deserve answers. And if she doesn't want us anymore? Lily's voice was barely audible. Then she's missing out on two amazing kids, Ethan replied, taking her small hand in his. But I want you to know something. No matter what we find out, you and Noah aren't alone anymore. I'm here now. A single tear rolled down Lily's cheek. This time, she didn't wipe it away. Can we put Noah to bed now? She asked, changing the subject. Ethan nodded, getting up to carry the sleeping boy. As they walked down the hallway, Lily by his side, Ethan made a silent vow. He would do whatever was necessary to find out what happened to their mother. They deserved the truth, deserved closure. And if his suspicions were correct, if the mother hadn't simply abandoned them, but something worse had happened, then Lily and Noah would need someone beside them when the truth emerged. Someone who wouldn't leave, someone who would stay. The next morning, after talking with Lily, Ethan woke up determined. While the children were still asleep, he made some calls and rearranged his schedule for the day. He postponed an important meeting with investors, an unusual move that surprised his team, as Ethan Walker never postponed business meetings. After serving breakfast and confirming Rosa would stay with the kids, Ethan drove downtown. The Department of Social Services occupied an older brick building with cramped offices, divided by thin walls and corridors, overflowing with paperwork. Following the receptionist's directions, Ethan found room 307. The nameplate on the door read, Rachel Miller, caseworker. He knocked lightly. Come in, a firm voice called from inside. Rachel Miller was around 40, with brown hair in a practical bun and sharp eyes behind red-framed glasses. Her small office was meticulously organized, colorful folders stacked in neat piles, and plants that added life to an otherwise bureaucratic setting. Mr. Walker? She stood, extending her hand. Punctual? I like that. Thank you for seeing me on such short notice, Ethan said, shaking her hand. You mentioned two vulnerable children in your call. That's always a priority for me. She pointed to the chair in front of her desk. Please, have a seat and tell me everything. And so Ethan did, from meeting the children at the bakery to the conversation with Lily the night before. Rachel listened intently, making occasional notes, her professional face revealing little of her thoughts. Let me see if I understand, she said when he finished. You found these kids, took them to your home, and now you want to formalize some kind of guardianship. Yes, Ethan confirmed. I want to do this the right way. They need stability and safety. Rachel removed her glasses, rubbing the bridge of her nose. Mr. Walker, I appreciate your concern, but I need to be honest. The system doesn't quite work like that. We can't just hand over guardianship of children to the first well-intentioned adult who shows up. I understand, Ethan replied calmly. But the system also failed Lily and Noah. They were living alone, unseen by everyone. Nobody noticed. Nobody helped. Rachel put her glasses back on, her gaze softening a bit. Unfortunately, you're right, but we still have protocols to follow. First, we need to locate the mother or any close relatives. And if we don't find anyone, then the children would enter foster care. They could be placed with a temporary family or an institution, depending on availability. The thought of Lily and Noah being separated again in some unfamiliar place made Ethan's chest tighten. And what about me? Could I apply for guardianship? Rachel sighed. Technically, yes, but I won't lie. It's going to be a long, complicated process. You have no prior relationship with these kids. You're not related. And frankly, your profile. She hesitated. My profile. Single man, no experience with children, demanding career. The adoption committee might question your motives and your capacity. Ethan felt a surge of frustration. My motives are simple. I want to help. As for my capacity, I can hire all the support needed, rearrange my work schedule, whatever it takes. Rachel studied him for a moment. I believe you, Mr. Walker. Honestly, I do, but the system doesn't run on my personal opinion. She reached into a drawer and pulled out some paperwork. Let's start at the beginning. I'll initiate a provisional foster process. That formalizes the current situation. allowing the children to stay in your care while we investigate. Meanwhile, we'll begin the search for the mother or other relatives." Ethan nodded, feeling cautious relief. "What do I need to do?" "Fill out these forms. We'll schedule a home visit to assess your living conditions. We'll interview you and, separately, the children." She handed Ethan a folder filled with papers. "We'll also need a background check, proof of income and character references, and I strongly suggest enrolling the children in school as soon as possible." "Noah is still recovering from pneumonia," Ethan reminded her. "As soon as he's well, then formal education is important, not just for learning but for socialization and having an official record that these children are being cared for." The next few hours were spent filling out forms and discussing practical details. When they finally finished, Rachel walked Ethan to the door. "I'll make my first visit next week. In the meantime, keep the kids' routine as stable as possible." "Thank you, Rachel, for everything." She smiled, a genuine smile that softened her professional demeanor. "You know, Mr. Walker, in 15 years on this job, I've seen many people say they want to help at-risk kids. Few actually do something about it." The following days were a whirlwind of preparations. Ethan enrolled Lily in a nearby school, got temporary documents with Rachel's help, and planned to do the same for Noah once he'd fully recovered. Rosa was briefed about the importance of the upcoming home visit. The apartment, already spotless, was child-proofed. Ethan even hired a safety specialist to check electrical outlets, windows, and other potential hazards. When he mentioned the visit to the children, Lily tensed up. "Is she the lady who'll decide if we can stay?" she asked, fear evident in her voice. "Yes," Ethan answered honestly. "But don't worry, Rachel wants what's best for you, just like I do." "What if she says no?" Ethan took Lily's hands, looking her in the eye. "I won't let them separate you. I promise." Rachel Miller's first home visit took place on a Tuesday. Ethan received her, clearly anxious, but the children surprised him with their natural behavior. Noah proudly showed off his new toys, while Lily, though reserved at first, answered all of Rachel's questions honestly. The caseworker observed the children interacting with Ethan, noting Lily's drawings on the fridge, Noah's medications laid out neatly, and the set meal times. She inspected the kids' bedroom, the bathroom adapted with a small stool so Noah could reach the sink, and the shelf of children's books. Then she sat down with Ethan in the kitchen, while the children played in the living room. "I'm impressed," she said, jotting something in her folder. "You've created a truly welcoming environment." "We're settling in," Ethan replied. "All of us." Rachel smiled. "You know what impresses me most? The way Lily looks at you. That girl's been through so much. Trust doesn't come easily for her, but she trusts you." Rachel's visits became regular in the following weeks. Each time, she brought new questions, new forms, new guidelines, but she also brought increasingly warm smiles and compliments on the children's progress. "Lily's adapting well at school," she mentioned during one visit. "Her teacher says she's very bright, just needs to catch up on missed material." Noah also started attending preschool a few mornings a week. Though hesitant at first to separate from Lily and Ethan, he soon made friends and came home with excited stories and colorful drawings. A month after her first visit, Rachel arrived with a solemn expression. "We have news about the case," she said after the children went to their rooms. "We found some information about their mother." Ethan's heart pounded. "And?" Rachel opened her folder and pulled out a piece of paper. "Helena Parker, 32 years old, history of unstable housing and substance abuse issues." She paused, as though organizing her thoughts. "Ethan, I think we should continue this conversation at my office tomorrow. It's complicated." The look in her eyes told Ethan everything he needed to know. The news wasn't good, and soon he'd have to decide how and what to tell Lily and Noah. That night, as he watched the children sleep peacefully, Ethan felt the weight of his responsibility. It wasn't just about giving them shelter or food. It was about healing hearts that had been broken once, and trusting him not to break them again. The system had its rules and procedures, but the heart had laws of its own, older and deeper. And Ethan knew, looking at the two children sleeping, which one he would follow. The meeting with Rachel the next day left Ethan with conflicting emotions. The news about Helena Parker was grim, but he needed time to process it before deciding how to tell Lily and Noah. That afternoon, when he got home, he found the children in the living room. Noah was stacking colorful blocks while Lily helped steady the tower. Their laughter filled the apartment, something that had become more frequent over the past weeks. Watching them, Ethan had a sudden idea. The children had missed out on so much of childhood. Maybe it was time they got some of it back. "Hey, you two," he called, stepping into the living room. "I've got a surprise." Noah looked up immediately, eyes gleaming with anticipation. Lily, more cautious, waited quietly. "How about we do something special tomorrow, a day just for us, away from home?" "Like what?" Lily asked. "It's a surprise," Ethan smiled, "but I guarantee it'll be a whole day of fun." "Can we go on a Ferris wheel?" Noah asked excitedly, knocking over his block tower without noticing. "There's no Ferris wheel around here, Noah," Lily gently corrected him. "Actually," Ethan interjected, "I have some ideas even better than a Ferris wheel." The next morning, the children woke early, eager for the promised outing. Ethan had everything ready. Backpacks with water, snacks and sunscreen, plus a small first aid kit he now carried everywhere. "Where are we going?" Noah asked for the 10th time as Ethan helped him tie his new sneakers. "It's a surprise, remember?" Ethan smiled, ruffling the boy's hair. "But I think you'll like it." When the car pulled into the zoo's parking lot, the kids' eyes went wide. The gate, decorated with animal figures and families streaming in with excited children, made it clear what awaited them. "What is this place?" Noah asked, pressing his face against the car window. "It's a zoo," Lily explained, her own voice trembling with subdued excitement. "They have real animals inside, like the ones in books." Noah's eyes were huge. "Exactly like in books," Ethan confirmed, "but alive." Their first stop was the reptile house. Noah clung to Ethan's hand as he watched the colorful snakes slithering behind the glass. "They can't get out, right?" he asked, a mix of fear and fascination in his voice. "No, they're safely in there," Ethan assured him. "We can look, but we can't touch." Lily, on the other hand, pressed close to the glass, observing every movement as if she were scientifically curious. "Look how they move," she remarked. "They don't even need legs." As they moved through the zoo, Ethan noticed the children's reactions. Noah wanted to see everything at once, running from one enclosure to the next, firing off 1,000 questions. Lily was more methodical, reading every sign and watching each animal intently. When they reached the flamingo enclosure, Lily stopped, completely enthralled. The pink birds stood on one leg, some gracefully curving their necks. "They're so pretty," she murmured, her green eyes reflecting the bird's soft pink hue. "They look like dancers." Ethan stood beside her, letting her absorb the moment. It was the first time he'd seen Lily genuinely captivated by something without any guardedness. "Did you know they're pink because of what they eat?" he told her. "Shrimp and algae with special pigments." "So they're not born pink?" she asked, fascinated. "No, they're gray when they're chicks. They turn pink as they grow." Lily nodded thoughtfully. "Like us," she said quietly. "We change when we grow up." Noah found his favorites in the primate area. The monkeys swung and played, making faces at each other. A baby clung to its mother's belly, and Noah beamed so broadly that Ethan's heart ached. "Look, Ethan, look at the baby, he's hiding." Ethan knelt beside him. "Yeah, he's safe with his mom." "He looks happy," Noah said, eyes fixed on the little monkey. "I think so," Ethan replied softly. After the zoo, Ethan took them to a nearby park, an open green space with a colorful playground. Noah ran straight to the swings. "Push me, Ethan, really high." Ethan helped him onto the swing, ensuring he was secure, then gave gentle pushes. Noah's gleeful shouts as he soared up and down filled the air. "Higher!" "I'm flying." Lily, initially hesitant, eventually joined him on the adjacent swing. Soon, both were seeing who could go higher, their laughter mingling in the crisp air. Watching them, Ethan felt a surge of emotion he couldn't name. Maybe it was happiness or gratitude, or a type of love he never knew he could feel. Seeing these children, who had faced such hardships, simply playing like kids should was a gift he never expected. For lunch, Ethan took them to a cozy downtown restaurant with huge glass windows overlooking a busy street. Seated by the window, the three watched cars and people go by as they ate burgers and fries. "There are so many people," Noah said, practically pressed up against the glass. "Where are they going?" "All kinds of places," Ethan answered. "Work, school, shopping, visiting friends." "Like ants," Lily observed, tracing her finger on the foggy glass. "Always moving." Their final stop of the day was a children's bookstore. It felt magical, with colorful shelves shaped like trees, floor cushions for reading, and a tiny stage for storytelling sessions. "You each get to pick one book to take home," Ethan announced. The children's eyes lit up. Noah darted to the animals section, while Lily wandered slowly among the shelves, lightly touching the spines of the books as if in reverence. After much deliberation, Noah chose a pop-up jungle animal book. Lily, having read the first pages of many options, picked an adventure story about a girl who discovers a portal to another world in her closet. "Are you sure we can take them?" Lily asked as Ethan paid at the counter. "Absolutely. They're yours." The sun was setting by the time they returned to the apartment. Noah fell asleep in the car, clutching his new book to his chest. Lily watched the city lights switch on, one by one. Ethan carried Noah to the bedroom and tucked him in. Lily trailed behind, looking almost as tired as her brother, but with a brightness in her eyes he'd never seen before. "Thanks for today," she said softly, as Ethan covered Noah. "It was really nice." Ethan smiled at her. "I'm glad you liked it." She hesitated, gathering courage. "It was the best day of my life," she finally whispered. Ethan felt a lump in his throat, overwhelmed by emotion. He thought of his own privileged childhood. Trips, expensive gifts, endless opportunities. And here was this girl, for whom a simple day at the zoo, a park, and a bookstore had been the best day of her life. "Mine too, Lily," he responded with sincerity, his voice thick. "Mine too." That night, after the children were asleep, Ethan sat in the dimly lit living room reflecting. The grim news Rachel had shared about Helena Parker weighed on his mind. He would soon have to tell Lily and Noah, but for now he wanted them to have this, pure joy, discovery, wonder, a childhood they'd been denied and that he, somehow, had the privilege to help them reclaim. In the children's bedroom, their new books rested on the nightstands, promises of more adventures to come. And on their sleeping faces, the faint traces of the day's smiles lingered, as if not even slumber could wipe away that hard-won happiness. A week after their day at the zoo, Ethan's phone rang while he worked in his office. It was Rachel Miller. "I need to speak with you in person," she said in a professional tone tinged with gravity. "I have the complete information on Helena Parker." Ethan arranged to meet her for lunch that very day. The children were in school, Lily in the 5th grade, and Noah at preschool 3 mornings a week. Their adjustment had been surprisingly smooth. Lily, although behind academically, was a dedicated student. Noah had made new friends easily and adored his teachers. The restaurant Ethan chose was discreet, with tables spaced far enough for privacy. Rachel arrived on time, carrying her brown leather folder and a serious expression. "Thank you for meeting me," she said, sitting down. "I thought you might prefer somewhere less formal than my office." "I appreciate that," they ordered quickly, and as soon as the waiter left, Rachel opened her folder and took out some documents. "We managed to trace Helena Parker's complete history," she began. "As we suspected, it's quite difficult." She handed Ethan a document. It contained basic information and a photo, a young woman with the same green eyes as Lily, but with deep circles under them and a haunted look. Helena had a rough life from her teens, dropped out of school, left home at 16, a string of temporary jobs. She had Lily at 20 and Noah at 24, each by a different father, both absent. Rachel paused when the waiter brought their water. In recent years, she was intermittently homeless with the kids, sometimes managing to find temporary lodging in poor conditions. There are occasional records from shelters and social services, but she rarely stayed long enough to get structured help. Ethan listened, imagining Lily's and Noah's life before he met them. "What happened to her?" he finally asked. Rachel took a deep breath. "Helena was found deceased in an alley about 8 months ago. The cause of death was an overdose, combined with exposure to extreme cold. She had no identification on her. At the time, they couldn't identify her, so she was buried as an indigent in a municipal cemetery. Ethan closed his eyes briefly, letting the information sink in. 8 months. The children had been on their own that entire time. We confirmed the identity through fingerprint records from previous social service contacts, Rachel continued. There's no doubt it was her. Any other relatives? We conducted a thorough search. Her mother died years ago. The father is unknown. There's one elderly aunt in a nursing home in the south, but she has serious health issues. No other close relatives we could find. Ethan nodded, absorbing the news. So that means, Rachel said gently, Lily and Noah are officially wards of the state. But, given the circumstances and the bond already established, I believe a judge will look favorably on your request for temporary guardianship, which could become permanent. Ethan barely touched his lunch. All he could think about was how to break this news to Lily. Noah might be too young to fully grasp it, but Lily had waited for her mum all those months, clinging to hope. How should I tell them? He asked softly. Rachel sipped her water. With honesty, but gently. Children often sense the truth, especially in situations like this. The key is ensuring they know they're not alone, that they have you. That afternoon, when he picked the children up from school, Ethan watched them with new eyes, Lily with her blue backpack, holding Noah's hand as they crossed the schoolyard, both smiling when they saw him. They were orphans without knowing it, children who had lost everything yet could still smile. He decided to wait a few days, preparing himself mentally. He consulted a child psychologist recommended by Rachel for advice on the best approach. He was determined not to make mistakes. On Friday, Noah was invited to a sleepover at a new preschool friend's house, a significant milestone in his social adjustment, arranged carefully by Ethan and the friend's mom. It would be the first night he'd spent away from Lily since Ethan had known them. With Noah away and the apartment quiet, Ethan knew it was time. He found Lily in the living room, lying on the rug, drawing. She had recently taken a stronger interest in Artie, spending hours with her colored pencils. Lily, he said gently, can we talk for a minute? She lifted her eyes from the drawing, a colorful landscape with a big yellow sun in the corner. Sure, I was done anyway. Ethan sat on the couch and patted the seat beside him. Lily got up, leaving the drawing on the floor, and sat near him. Is it something serious? She asked, noticing Ethan's expression. Yes, it's important, he replied honestly. Remember I told you we were looking for information about your mother? Lily nodded, her body instantly tense. Did you find her? Lily, Ethan began softly, choosing each word carefully. We learned what happened to your mom, and it's difficult news. She didn't speak, just stared at Ethan with those green eyes that seemed far older than her age. Your mom passed away, Lily? It happened 8 months ago, before we even met. Ethan watched her face, ready for tears, screams, or denial, but Lily just went very still, as if processing it, comparing it to something she already suspected in her heart. How? She finally asked, voice small. Ethan hesitated. He and the psychologist had discussed how much detail was appropriate. She got very sick and was alone in the cold. Her body just couldn't handle it. Lily lowered her gaze to her hands. Was it my fault? The question felt like a punch to Ethan's gut. No, Lily, absolutely not. Why would you think that? I should have looked harder. I should have gone out to find her when she didn't come back. But I was scared to leave Noah alone. Ethan took her small hands in his. Listen to me carefully, Lily. None of this was your fault. You were just a child. You still are. And you did something extraordinary by caring for Noah. Your mother had problems no child could solve. Lily said nothing for a moment. When she looked up again, silent tears were streaming down her cheeks. I knew, she whispered. Deep down, I think I always knew she wasn't coming back. The tears came more freely then, but without sobs or wailing. It was a quiet grief, the kind that had been braced for, yet still hurt. Come here, Ethan said, opening his arms. Lily hesitated only for a second before letting him hug her. Her small body shook against him as she finally allowed herself to release the built-up emotion. Ethan didn't speak. There were no words that could take this pain away. He just held her firmly, offering his presence, his silent support. He gently rubbed circles on her back. After a while, Lily pulled back, wiping her tears on her sleeves. "We have to tell Noah," she said, ever concerned about her brother. "Yes, but we can do that together, when you're ready, in a way that he can understand." Lily nodded, taking a deep breath. "Where is she now?" "She was buried in the city cemetery. If you want it, we can visit her someday." Lily considered it. Maybe. Not now. They sat in silence a little longer, the weight of the news hanging between them, heavy but finally known. The monster under the bed finally had a name, a face, and in some way, that made it less terrifying. "What happens to us now?" Lily finally asked. Ethan looked into her eyes, wanting her to understand every word. "You'll stay with me, Lily. I'm working with Rachel to make it legal, but regardless of paperwork, this is your place now, this is your home." "Forever?" "Forever," Ethan confirmed. "If that's what you both want." Lily didn't answer in words. Instead, she hugged Ethan again, holding on with all the strength in her little arms. He hugged her back, feeling the weight and honor of the trust she placed in him. That night, Lily slept in Ethan's bed. He'd offered when he noticed her hesitation to sleep alone without Noah. Together, they looked through the window at the stars that managed to shine despite the city lights. "Mum used to say the stars were windows in the sky," Lily murmured, already half asleep. "That's a nice thought," Ethan replied. "Do you think she can see us from there?" Ethan looked at the girl, her face serene despite tear stains. "I think so, Lily, and I think she'd be very proud of the amazing person you are." Once Lily fell asleep, Ethan stayed awake, watching her. The conversation had been as hard as he'd expected, but it had also brought a necessary closure, maybe the start of healing a wound left open too long. Lily was no longer alone with her burden and her grief. Now, there was someone to share the weight, to help carry the truth, and maybe over time, to help her find happiness again, despite the loss. Because some families are formed by blood, and others are formed by the heart. And Ethan knew without any doubt that his heart now belonged to these two children fate had brought into his life. 2 weeks after that conversation with Lily about her mother, Ethan scheduled another meeting with Rachel at her office. The news of their mother's death had hit Noah in a more straightforward, childlike way. He cried when Lily and Ethan told him, asked a few questions about heaven and stars, then asked if they could put a photo of her in their room, a simple, pure way of mourning that broke Ethan's heart. Now sitting across from Rachel's desk, Ethan felt a certainty he'd never had before. "I want to adopt them," he said without preamble, "formally, permanently." Rachel wasn't surprised. She closed the folder she'd been reviewing, took off her glasses, and looked at Ethan directly. "I expected that," she replied with a faint smile. "I've seen how you three have become a family over these last months." "That's what we are," Ethan confirmed. "A family. Maybe not in the traditional sense, maybe not the way I imagined, but it's what I feel." Rachel nodded sympathetically. "You need to understand the process, Ethan. It won't be quick or always easy." "I'm prepared." Rachel put her glasses back on and opened a new folder. "Considering you already have temporary guardianship and our investigation found no close relatives capable of taking the children, we do have a more direct path, but still, the system is cautious with adoptions, especially for single applicants. Because of my marital status? Partly, also because of your financial status." Ethan frowned, puzzled. "I thought having a stable financial situation would be a plus." "It is, but it also raises questions about motives. The system wants to ensure wealthy people aren't just collecting children as trophies or charity projects." "That's absurd," Ethan protested, feeling a wave of indignation. "Lily and Noah are people, not projects." "I know," Rachel soothed. "And from observing you with the kids, I know your motives are genuine, but we still have to convince a judge and an adoption committee." Ethan took a deep breath, reining in his frustration. "What do we need to do?" "First, we continue the home visits, but now focusing on adoption. There will be more detailed interviews. a full investigation of your background, psychological evaluations for you and the kids. Rachel paused, checking her notes. We'll also have an official period of cohabitation, which, in effect, is already happening. The judge can count all the time since the children started living with you. How long might this take? Realistically, several months, possibly up to a year. Adoptions rarely move fast. Ethan nodded, absorbing this. The important thing is the children stay with you during the process, Rachel continued, unless something serious comes up, which I don't anticipate. Your temporary guardianship stands. And after all that, if all goes well, and I believe it will, you'll become Lily and Noah's legal father. They'll take your last name, if they wish. They will, for all intents and purposes, be your children. The word father echoed in Ethan's mind. It was a title he'd never envisioned for himself, not so soon, anyway. He always figured he'd one day start a family in the usual way, but fate had other plans. I'm ready, he said firmly. Let's start. Leaving Rachel's office, Ethan carried a folder of paperwork. The bureaucracy was daunting, but he understood the need. These measures existed to protect children like Lily and Noah. On the way home, he stopped at a hardware store. If they were going to become an official family, the apartment needed to reflect that. The children's room still felt like a guest room, neutral and impersonal. It was time to make it truly theirs. When Ethan arrived, the kids were at the kitchen table doing homework under Rose's supervision. I have a surprise, he announced, placing several paint swatches on the table. How about we turn your bedroom into something special? Noah immediately picked a vibrant blue color card. I like this one. Lily looked at the swatches more cautiously. We can really choose. Of course, Ethan replied. It's your room. It should be how you like it. The next day, the work began. Ethan hired professional painters but insisted on helping. At Lily's suggestion, one wall was painted a soft yellow, like morning sunlight, she explained. The wall near Noah's corner was painted a sky blue. The temporary beds were replaced with new ones the children picked out at a furniture store. Noah fell in love with a race car bed, while Lily chose a simpler frame with a built-in desk for drawing and homework. Can I really pick any bedspread? Lily asked as they browsed a department store. Anyone you like, Ethan confirmed. After much deliberation, she chose one covered in constellations. So I can remember the stars, she murmured. Noah got a custom closet with low shelves he could reach himself. It's all mine, he cheered, carefully organizing his cars and toys. Books were added to the shelves, adventure stories for Lily, illustrated animal books for Noah, and many others Ethan thought they might enjoy. A small armchair was placed in the corner, perfect for bedtime reading. In a souvenir shop, they found a simple picture frame. Into it went a photo Rachel had tracked down, Helena Parker smiling in a rare moment of joy, holding baby Lily. It was placed on the nightstand between the two beds. So she can always watch over us, Lily said, positioning the frame. The transformation took 2 weeks. During that time, the kids slept in Ethan's room, excited about the final reveal. On the big day, Ethan led them to the bedroom door, now decorated with a wooden plaque reading Lily and Noah. Ready? He asked, covering Noah's eyes, while Lily kept hers shut on her own. Yes, they exclaimed in unison. When they opened their eyes, the astonishment and joy on their faces made it all worthwhile. The room was unrecognizable, bright, colorful, welcoming. A space that declared home in every detail. Noah dashed straight to his race car bed, jumping on it. Lily moved more slowly, touching each item as if to confirm it was real. Is this really ours? She asked softly, pausing by her new desk, where a set of brand new colored pencils sat in a ceramic holder. Everything here is yours, Ethan said. This is your room. This is your home. Lily turned to him, green eyes shining with something Ethan rarely saw, pure, unguarded hope. And you? She asked. Are you ours too? The question caught Ethan by surprise, stirring something deep within him. Yes, Lily, he managed, voice thick with emotion. I'm yours too. Always. That night, after reading them stories in their new beds, Ethan stood by the door, watching them drift off to sleep. The faint smell of fresh paint lingered, mingling with the aroma of new linens and freshly opened books. His phone buzzed. A message from Rachel with more forms for the adoption process. He'd handle it tomorrow. Tomorrow he'd face the bureaucracy, the interviews, the evaluations. Tonight he just wanted this moment. In his mind, he traced the path that had led him here. A girl trying to grab a sandwich, an abandoned building, a feverish boy. Decisions made in the heat of the moment that had forever altered the course of 3 lives. Ethan gently closed the door, leaving a crack of light from the hallway, just the way Lily liked it. Some might call it destiny, others coincidence. He didn't know the right word. He only knew he was exactly where he was meant to be, and that he was finally home. The adoption process, as Rachel warned, wasn't quick. Months of interviews, home visits, psychological evaluations, and mountains of paperwork followed. Ethan restructured his professional life, working more from home and delegating so he could be fully present for each step. During that time, the family routine solidified. The children fully adapted to school. Noah performed in his first holiday recital, singing with his preschool class. Lily won an art contest, her work displayed in the school's main hallway. Ethan missed none of it, treasuring every moment. Finally, on a cold winter morning, almost a year after that fateful day at the bakery, the final hearing arrived. Ethan woke before his alarm, a mix of anxiety and hope making his heart race. He found Lily already up, sitting on the edge of her bed, smoothing out the blue dress they had chosen for this day. "Couldn't sleep?" he asked, sitting beside her. "A little," she admitted. "I keep wondering if everything will be okay." "It will," Ethan reassured her. "Rachel says it's basically a formality by now. What if the judge changes her mind?" Ethan draped an arm over her shoulders. "That won't happen, but even if something went wrong with the paperwork or bureaucracy, it wouldn't change how we feel. It wouldn't change the fact that we're a family." Lily nodded, looking a bit calmer. "I'll wake Noah. He needs a bath." Noah was excited, mostly because Ethan had mentioned a celebration afterwards. To him, the hearing was just a party where he had to wear nice clothes. Breakfast was a quiet, tense affair. Ethan checked the documents one last time. Rosa made pancakes, Noah and Lily's favorite, decorated with strawberry smiley faces. "For good luck," she said with a playful wink. The family court was in an imposing downtown building. Inside the marble lobby, Noah gripped Ethan's hand tightly. "It's so big," he whispered, looking up at the vaulted ceiling. "It is," Ethan agreed, "but there's nothing to be scared of." They found Rachel waiting near the hearing room. She wore a formal suit, but greeted them with a warm smile. "Welcome," she said, crouching to speak at the children's eye level. "You both look wonderful today." Noah spun around to show off his bow tie, which he'd insisted on picking out himself. Lily just offered a shy smile. "Ready?" Rachel asked Ethan. "More than ever." The hearing room wasn't like those on TV. It was smaller, more intimate, with a large desk where the judge sat and chairs arranged in a semicircle. There was no audience besides them, Ethan's lawyer, and 2 court clerks. Judge Andrews was a woman in her 50s, hair graying in an elegant bun, sharp eyes behind thin-framed glasses. When she entered, everyone stood. "Please, be seated," she said in a calm yet firm voice. The judge reviewed the documents on her desk for a few moments, then looked at the little family. "We're here to formalize the adoption of Lily Parker, age 10, and Noah Parker, age 5, by Ethan Walker," she began. Looking over the case, this is quite straightforward. The social worker's report is extremely positive about the bond formed between the adopter and the children. She flipped through a few more pages. Psychological evaluations indicate both children are well adjusted in their new home and view Mr. Walker as their paternal figure. The school has noted significant academic and social progress since they began living with him. All legal requirements have been met. Judge Andrews set the papers aside and looked directly at Ethan. "Mr. Walker, when you started this process, you were a single man with no child-rearing experience. Taking on 2 siblings in a vulnerable situation, I must admit that raised some initial caution flags." Ethan nodded. understanding the concern. "However," the judge continued, "your actions over the past year have shown a genuine commitment to these children's well-being. You restructured your professional life, sought guidance when needed, and most importantly, provided an environment of love and stability." She then turned to Lily. "Lily, I'd like to hear from you. How do you feel about officially becoming Mr. Walker's daughter?" The room fell silent. Lily, normally articulate, seemed momentarily speechless. She looked at Ethan, then the judge. "I already feel like I am," she said at last. "The paperwork is just so everyone else knows what we do." A soft smile crossed the judge's face. She then addressed Noah. "And you, young man, are you happy living with Mr. Walker?" Noah, less shy than his sister, answered immediately. "Yes, he reads stories every night and makes pancakes on Sundays, and he said we're going camping this summer." A ripple of laughter lightened the room. "Well, with such endorsements," the judge said, "I see no reason to delay a union that obviously already exists in practice." She picked up her pen and signed the primary document on her desk. "By the power vested in me by the state, and with great personal satisfaction, I declare this adoption finalized. Lily and Noah are now legally Lily Walker and Noah Walker." The formality of the ceremony broke when Noah jumped out of his seat with a whoop of joy. Lily seemed frozen for a second, as if she couldn't believe it, until Ethan knelt beside her. "We did it," he said gently. Lily's eyes filled with tears as she flung her arms around Ethan. Noah quickly joined, turning it into a three-person knot in the middle of the hearing room. The judge let the moment happen, smiling. When they finally pulled apart, she rose. "Congratulations, Walker family. May this union bring the happiness you all deserve." After signing the final documents and receiving the official certificates, they stepped out of the courthouse into a sunny winter day. Rachel accompanied them to the door. "You've made my work worthwhile," she said, hugging each of them. "Families like yours are why I do what I do." As planned, they went to lunch at the kids' favorite spot, a dinosaur-themed restaurant where Noah loved the footprint-shaped nuggets. Throughout the meal, Lily kept looking at the certificate she refused to let go of since the hearing. "What is it?" Ethan asked, noticing her fascination. "My name," she said. "It looks strange, but in a good way, Lily Walker." "It suits you," Ethan smiled. "Have you thought about what people will call you now?" Lily asked, a rare uncertainty in her tone. Ethan sensed the real question behind her words. What should they call him now? It was a topic they'd circled around for months. "You can call me whatever makes you comfortable," he said gently. "Ethan is still great." "What if we want to call you Dad?" Noah asked, having set aside his toy dinosaur to join the conversation. Ethan felt a wave of emotion stronger than he expected. "If that's how you see me, I'd be honored." Noah nodded, as though solving a complex puzzle in his mind. "I think I'll call you Dad then." The simplicity of Noah's decision, so characteristic of him, made Ethan and Lily laugh. And so, in a dinosaur-themed restaurant, over nuggets and milkshakes, a father was officially born. In the weeks that followed, life found its new rhythm. At school, teachers and friends already referred to Lily and Noah as the Walkers. Ethan attended his first parent-teacher conferences, brimming with pride he never thought he'd feel over a volcano diorama Noah had made. One Saturday morning, about a month after the official adoption, Ethan suggested a special outing. "How about we visit Davidson's bakery today?" Lily, who was drawing at the kitchen table, looked up in surprise. "The bakery where we met?" "That's the one. I thought it might be interesting to go back, now that we're officially a family." Noah, who had only vague memories of the bakery, was excited at the mere mention of treats. Lily looked thoughtful but agreed. The bakery hadn't changed. Same fresh bread aroma, same gleaming display case, same dark wooden tables. Ethan realized he hadn't been back since that fateful day almost a year ago. He entered carrying Noah, while Lily held his free hand. The doorbell jangled their arrival, catching a few customers' attention. Behind the register was Sandra, the same clerk as before. Ethan saw the exact moment she recognized Lily, a frown of confusion, followed by surprise when she noticed the girl holding Ethan's hand. They sat near the window. Noah immediately eyed the pastries in the display case. "Can I have hot chocolate and a muffin, Dad?" he asked, the word Dad still sounding new and wonderful. "Of course," Ethan replied. "How about you, Lily?" "Same," she said quietly, glancing around the place as if reconciling past memories with the present. Ethan stood to place the order. While he waited, he sensed someone approaching. It was Sandra. "Excuse me," she said hesitantly. "That girl, she's the same one from before, isn't she? The one who tried to—" "Yes," Ethan confirmed. "That's Lily." Sandra bit her lip, looking genuinely remorseful. Can I talk to her for a moment?" Ethan nodded, returning to the table with the clerk. Lily looked up and recognized her immediately. "Lily," Sandra began, "I wanted to apologize for how I treated you that day. I was rude and, well, it wasn't right." Lily looked from the woman to Ethan, then back again. "It's okay," she said simply. "You were just doing your job." "No," Sandra insisted. "I wasn't. My job is to treat people with respect. I'm glad you're doing better now." A small smile crossed Lily's lips. "I am," she said. "Very much." Sandra nodded, relieved, and returned to the register. Moments later, instead of the usual items, she brought over a tray with extra whipped cream hot chocolates and a selection of pastries they hadn't ordered. "On the house," she said, placing the tray on the table. "To celebrate? Well, you." As they enjoyed the unexpected treats, Ethan watched Lily. There was no longer that desperate hunger, that constant tension in her shoulders. She was now a girl who giggled at Noah's whipped cream mustache, who chatted excitedly about her science project, who looked forward to summer vacation. When they left the bakery, Lily paused to look back one last time. "It's strange," she said. "Feels like it was in another life." "In a way it was," Ethan replied, understanding completely. Back at the apartment, no home, Noah ran off to show Rosa the extra pastries Sandra had insisted they take. Lily headed straight to her room, saying she had something to finish. Hours later, as Ethan was making dinner, she appeared in the kitchen, holding a sheet of paper. "I made something," she said, handing it to him. It was a drawing far more detailed than her early ones. It showed 3 figures holding hands, a tall man and 2 kids, one older and one younger, in front of a building that looked very much like the one they lived in. Above, in bright, careful lettering, it read, "Our family." "It's for the wall," she explained. "If you want—" Ethan felt a knot in his throat, treating the drawing as though it was the most precious thing in the world. "It's perfect, Lily. We'll put it in the best spot in the house." Together, they chose a place on the living room wall, right beside the photos they'd collected over the months. Noah on his first day of school, Lily with her art prize, the 3 of them in the snow building a snowman. As they taped the drawing in place, Noah joined them, offering advice on the exact height. "Higher. No, lower. Perfect." When it was finally up, the 3 stepped back to admire the piece. "Looks good there," Noah declared. "Looks perfect," Lily agreed. Ethan looked at the drawing, then at the 2 children by his side, his children, and felt a completeness he had never known. A year ago, this apartment was merely the place he slept between business deals, fancy, expensive, but empty. Now, with occasional fingerprints on the walls, toys scattered around, needing nightly tidying, drawings on the fridge, little shoes at the entrance, and laughter echoing down the halls, it had been transformed. "I think the house finally has everything it needed," Ethan said, pulling them both into a hug. Lily smiled, resting her head on his shoulder. "Yeah," she agreed. "All of us." Outside the window, the city kept up its frenetic pace. Busy people, honking cars, a world spinning on its axis. But inside that apartment, one family, formed not by blood but by love and choice, had found its own center of gravity. Sometimes, Ethan thought, life's greatest gifts arrive disguised as its biggest challenges. Sometimes a single act of kindness, a sandwich offered, a hand extended can change everything. Sometimes, a family is exactly what you make of it. And so ends the story